Your website is the anchor of your online presence that we all know, but is it working as hard for you as it can? Well, my guest today helps clients get more patients from their website, and he's going to shed some light on how you can do it better. I'm Carl White, principal at Market Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of PracticeCare. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Not only is that what they usually want, but care is better when the provider owns the practice, because that's when they're going to have the most freedom to make the clinical decisions they think are best. It's different when somebody else owns the practice, whoever they may be, because eventually their agenda starts to make its way into the provider's head and nothing bad ever happens. But it's more for them to think about, let's just keep it all out, keep it privately owned so that the provider can spend the most time thinking about what's best for their patients. My guest today is Hunter Davis. Hunter is an elite marketing and business coach with over a decade of experience serving clients around the globe. He's on a mission to take the stress and confusion out of marketing a private practice so therapists can get paid what they're worth, have time for their own self-care, and help more clients get healthier. Hunter, thank you for coming on PracticeCare.
Yeah, Carl, I'm excited to be here and talk about websites.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk to another marketing person. We kind of sit in our own little hovels all day long and think about stuff. It's nice to actually say it out loud. Before we get into websites and all things websites, I want to start where I start with every guest. Your bio was short. I asked for that, but fill in the gaps. Help us get to know you a bit better. How'd you end up where you are? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Early on in my career, I did a lot of marketing consulting for businesses of all shapes and sizes. So whether that be solopreneurs or international multi-million-dollar brands, even a short stint with Hershey Chocolate. And what I realized over the time of working with lots of those different brands was that actually what often made marketing work or not work for people, no matter what industry you were in, kind of came down to the same idea of whether or not you had a kind of a clear marketing message and whether the right people were hearing it. So a few years ago, I started to focus in on working specifically with therapists, and that's been a really great and enjoyable project. And so I've loved coming and helping more people in the medical community really unlock the power in their websites and really focused in on that more recently.
And how'd you zero in on therapists as opposed to any other?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, it happened because I had a friend who was a therapist who I kind of did a Friday side hustle gig for. And I charged her a few $100s to help her overhaul her website. And I called her 9 months later, and she had increased her annual income by almost 50%. And she was making, well over six figures working 3 days a week.
Wow.
And so she was only 2 or 3 years out of school. And the only thing I asked her, what did you change? What networking events have you been going to? Who have you been sending gift baskets to?
Right.
And she kept saying, Hunter, nothing. All I did was change the website. And so that was kind of where I said, okay, maybe therapists, there's an unfair advantage a therapist could have because most therapists don't prioritize their website. So let's go help therapists with that.
There you go. And there's more and more of them all the time. I live in Chicagoland, and there's nothing unique about it, but honestly, and I don't mean this joking at all. There's so much anxiety around where I live that if you are a good therapist and you can write it out for a few months, like you need to do more than just write it out, but the demand is definitely there. Let's put it that way. So it makes sense to be a growing market for you. Okay. So websites, before we get into how people mess up their websites, funny way to say it. What are people have certain conceptions and misconceptions about different things they use, and a website's one of them. What are some of the more common, points of view and misconceptions you see practices having about their website? I want to hear what you think. I know what I think, but I want to hear what you say, what you hear. We can compare notes.
Yeah, so maybe this is the same way that a doctor who has a patient come in. I imagine that they are often surprised, about the patient's mindset, because the patient might come in and think about what they're experiencing with one way. And the doctor, because they're experts in that field, I'm sure they sometimes have to help people bridge the gap between their current perspective and maybe a more accurate one.
Yeah.
So in the same way as a marketing professional and somebody who really has a focus on websites, the misconception I often see is that practitioners, people in private practice, they see their website on an equal level to the importance of, designing a good business card and making sure there's fresh flowers in the lobby. They see it kind of in the same list at the same level.
Yeah.
And to me, sometimes I want to kind of jump up and down and maybe scream a little bit, because I think the misconception is that websites don't matter that much.
Yeah.
It's just kind of one piece among 100 things that we do to market our private practice. When in reality, what I see is that all roads eventually will lead a client to your website, no matter what. Like, it's more clients will than even interact with you in person, whether
Yeah.
that be word of mouth referrals, online directory referrals, other clinicians referring you. The first place people are going is your website. All roads lead to your website.
Yeah. And somehow that doesn't seem to, yeah, it's really, it's interesting, isn't it? It's sometimes I think you see a website, it's a disaster. And I think, I don't even like this comparison, but just to wake them up, would you let your waiting room look like this? Would you let
Hmm.
some other first impression look like this, behave like this? Oh my God, no. Well, then why are you doing this? And you're right. You look at visitor stats and anything else, and hundreds or thousands of people checked you out. Don't you want them to see something that's representative and proper and all the other boxes to check? Yeah. I think underappreciate. I don't know why. Why is that? Like, I don't know why that is. Why do you think? I don't know.
I mean, I'll give you my real honest perspective here. And it's
Yeah.
because I think a lot of us were trained in our area of expertise and we weren't given a business education. And so we
Hmm.
have a hard time prioritizing the 100 item long to-do list that is being a business owner.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, I understand, but I think your waiting room analogy is pretty it's well aligned, because while we can see our waiting room and we can tell, how that looks with our website, we don't fully realize that we've done the waiting room equivalent of, we have got half the lights on, the
Hi.
chairs are disheveled,
Yeah.
and there's little pieces of
Smells.
paper,
Yeah.
and each wall is painted a different color.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
it, but
Dead
it's not
flowers.
physical.
I
Yeah,
know.
dead
I
flowers.
use it as like
Exactly.
first impression. A website's, my opinion, way more valuable. But it's like the first impression, kind of, sort of. Would you ever let a first impression look like this? But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so more comparing notes here. So top mistakes, most common mistakes you see, clients when you first start with them on their websites. All the things that make it
Yeah.
seem like a horrible, horrible ass waiting room. I guess. What do you see?
Yeah, let's go
Let's
with
do
that.
it.
So the first mistake that I often see is an unclear next step, an obvious
Mm,
next step for people to take. So very often, because we don't want to be salesy on our website, we'll put like a contact button somewhere or something, but we really don't make it obvious. And that's
mhm,
kind of like the equivalent we call, like, the big button on your website that, for most private practices should say schedule an appointment
mhm,
or call now.
mhm,
That's the equivalent of like having a cash register in a store or having a front desk in your lobby where people go to check in.
mhm,
And for some reason, a lot of practitioners don't have that clear next step on their website. It's usually just like a learn more or a contact in the bottom of the website. And it's kind of like making your front desk hard to find when people walk into the lobby, because you're not trying to be salesy. So we're going to go hide it in this closet over here. It makes
right,
no sense to me. So
right.
an unclear next step. Would you say that
That's
that
a good
resonates from
one. It's going to be
practices?
hard to rank these because that's a really good one. It's, and it's funny. It's like it's not salesy. People people want to find you. If they want you to help them, just make it easy. Like it's not,
Yeah,
you're not doing it. It's not salesy. It's educational. But yeah, that's a pretty good one. Why lead them in if
yeah,
they're going to make it impossible to? It's like, what's your phone number? I'm not going to tell you. Well, why not? I don't know. It feels wrong. No, it's not. Okay, but anyway, yeah. All right. So unclear next step. Call to action. So if you ever hear somebody say, marketing, that's the marketing jargon term. Um, there are lots of calls
Hmm.
to action, but the number one most easiest to find is how the hell do I contact you? So yes.
Yep, we're talking a big, bright colored button that says schedule an appointment and have it about 10 times on your homepage, and that
Yeah.
will help increase the results from your website.
Yeah. And you can also make it plenty of sites have this too, where as you scroll down and you kind of leave the top menu behind, the top menu can stay visible so that it's always there too. You don't want it to go away. All right. So
Yep.
unclear next step. That's a good one. What are some other ones that you see? What's another one? You go, then I'll go.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Another one that I see is they don't clearly state what they do or what problem they solve. So very often, uh, private practices will use kind of either industry jargon to describe what they do, um, or some sort of poetic language around it. So
Yeah.
an example I'll give is one time I was working with an orthodontist. And I said, marketing is all about your website's about the problem that you help people solve. And I said, did you know, like the average general American, like if you said, hey, what does an orthodontist do? They don't know. Like it isn't as common as pediatrician.
Hmm.
And so I encouraged them. I said, you know what the headline on your website should say? It should say the problem that you solve, which is we fix crooked teeth.
Right.
That is what the headline on your website should say. And
Yes.
this orthodontist who was 20, 30 years of experience was like, oh my gosh, that's the problem we fix in the world. And that kind of blew her mind because she was so close to it. So
Hmm.
I see that that's a mistake that people make is just not clearly stating what they do or the problems that they solve.
Yes. And first, I'm going to mine that I was going to contribute was highly related to that. Because yeah, it's got to be the first thing you see, like just above that you know, big blue button we were talking about a second ago. One thing that I see a lot is right up in that same top of the homepage, they talk about themselves. I have lots of
Mm,
experience. I've done 15,000 surgeries in this procedure, whatever it is. And I just look at that and I go, they don't care about you yet. They care about their problem. Do you help them solve it? Just like you were saying. And then if you grab them with that, which is not salesy, it's educational, then they're going to stick around and check you out more. Eventually, they want to know about you, but not yet. And I think some proportion of the population that we're talking about truly believes that that's necessary information, and it is. It's just not first. So I see that a lot. We're awesome at. You're supposed to say that, and you're supposed to be that. So yeah.
yeah, totally. I think that those education, those credentials, people eventually want to see them, but you're right. There's an order to it, and it's only after they're at least convinced that you have an answer to a problem that they solve. Because, if you're not hungry, you're not going to care that I'm a professional chef or have gone to a certain culinary school because you're not hungry right now, or
Right.
you have a different problem. And so, in the same way, it's connecting on the problem first and then explaining your expertise and credentials.
Right. And depending on the specialty you're in, just to build on what you were saying, some areas of the world of healthcare, it is very clear. Pediatrician, we treat children. That's not how I would say it, but that's the point. And others are much more vague, like the world of pain management, right? There's a lot of different
Hmm.
specialties that seek to, treat pain. So you just have to really be probably more clear than you think you do, because you're right. You're so close to it, you forget what's confusing and what's clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. You,
What
you ready for the next one?
Let's hit it. I was just going to ask you.
I'm curious. We'll play a little game
We can go
here.
on
So
all
the
day here.
next mistake is what I call unhelpful photos. So tell me, what are some typical photos that you've seen on private practice websites?
Oh, smiling people who have no representativeness towards the practice or the patient. Scenes that just don't seem to have much to do with what the practice does. Um, Stock, it's obvious that that's the people in that photo are just aren't relevant, have nothing to do with the practice itself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. There's just very generic photos. And so my favorite is there's often a picture of a pond with ripples on it. I just feel like that's an important one. That or a
Yes.
puzzle piece going into a puzzle, a red
Yes.
puzzle
The
piece.
gears, a lot of
So
gears. Yeah.
Yeah, and I get why people put these things on there, right? Like they either are beautiful aesthetically, or perhaps they it's this is the missing puzzle piece in their health. But the problem is our clients come to our websites with one question primarily, which is, can you help? Do you help people like me with the problem that I have?
Hmm.
So the same way that if I was to go to Amazon looking to buy dish soap, I want to see a picture of dish soap because that's what I'm out here to buy. It's what I'm shopping for. I
Yes.
don't want to see a picture of a field of daisies because it smells like daisies. So in
Yes.
the same way, a private practice, you are selling your office, you are selling meeting with medical professionals in that office. So having actual photos of those things, the actual service that you're selling, are really important. And so I often say, don't use your images to decorate, use them to communicate.
Yeah. I love that because so the daisies, okay. So if it smells like daisies, that means the dish soap is awesome. But the problem with that is that nobody's going to make that connection. You're making people think way too hard and they're not going to
Yep.
get it and they're not going to try and they're going to get confused and they're going to leave. Just show the dish soap. Just show the office. Show, don't over, any amount of thinking is overthinking, unfortunately, today. So don't make them do
Yeah,
it. You know,
definitely.
don't make them do it. Do you find one? I mean, there's a lot of sameness in how like practitioners within a specialty tend to describe themselves, right? They describe themselves in their profession, which I get. Um, but going back to, the problem that you solve, do you get into like how are you different than your competition? Do you ever work on them? Which is it's not quite a website only question, but that's where it's going to showcase itself.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good example in the private practice community because very often, unless you are a brand that prides itself on you really have a strong differentiator
Mm-hmm.
from other people in your market. I could see that being the case, but 9 times out of 10, you don't need to say something different than your competitors. You just need to say it clearer.
Yeah.
Um, so, for example, I mean, with our business, when we work with mental health professionals and therapists and all of that, we don't, we're very strategy minded, all of that. But my competitors say, we're strategic and we help you grow revenue. That's what they say.
Mm-hmm.
I just say it better. I just say we help you grow your practice to 6 figures in less than 12 months, or you get your money back. So that's another way to say that I'm
Mm-hmm.
strategic.
Mm-hmm.
I just say it clearer and better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It
So
does.
we're saying the same
We
thing.
are. And I like the not using the word strategic because, again, you could line up 10 people and say, what's your definition of strategic? You're going to get 10 different answers. And that's a problem if you're going to use the word. So just avoid it and keep it simple,
Yeah.
you know?
So
Yeah. Let's keep going. What else do you see on,
okay,
webs? Yeah.
this one's the low-hanging fruit here.
Okay.
But it's simply, I think, in communicating an air of professionalism, the mistake that often people make is they just use too many fonts and colors. I know it sounds simple, but I still see it pretty often.
Yeah.
Um, and too many fonts and colors communicate that you're unorganized as a brand. You're not a professional.
Hmm.
So really all you need for your brand is you need 2 fonts and you need 1 or 2 colors,
Yep.
right? Would
Yep.
you agree with that?
I totally. And where do you get them from? From your logo. And if you don't have
Hmm.
one, go get one. They then come back and do the website because they should all flow. Yeah, don't overcomplicate it. Um, I worked for my prior career. I worked for a big Fortune 500 company, and there were a number of divisions, and each division had a color or two, but that was it. And it made sense
Hmm.
for them because they were really distinct markets and populations and everything. But within a division, it was the fewest possible for the same reason. You don't need a rainbow. You just need what you said, a couple and a couple. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's funny. I actually recently creating a client's brand. I mean, we literally used Times New Roman as the big headline font, which you're like, wait, Times New Roman, so common. But it doesn't really matter if you make that Times New Roman the right color green and you use it consistently, it creates this uniform professional experience for clients. And as they come to your website, they feel that professionalism
Yeah.
exuded there, and they're more likely to click on scheduling an appointment on your website and growing your revenue of your private practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, a good, it's, these are like fundamental things for everybody listening. Like hopefully everybody here who's listening is going to go back and check out their website and use this almost as a checklist because they, for us to say them out loud, they can sound pretty basic, but they're pretty prevalent. So let's keep going.
All
What's
right,
another
I've
one?
got
Yeah.
one more. This
All
one's my
right.
favorite one because some of
Okay.
these other things we've talked about, people maybe already have, but this is one I don't see very many people have, but I think it's really, really powerful, which is providing a three-step plan to doing business with you. So because we operate our office or our business, we think the process of, let's just say, of working with a chiropractor is obvious, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows how this works. But if someone's never worked with a chiropractor before, or perhaps you have a different framework than maybe someone they worked with in the past,
Mm-hmm.
providing a three-step plan on your website can be extremely helpful, even if it's as simple as schedule an appointment,
Mm-hmm.
show up to the appointment, choose a treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
Even if providing those three steps, it creates this little mental bridge in the client's brain to know, hey, what's happening next? How does this whole thing work?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And three's a magic number. People tend to remember things in threes, even if they don't remember all three of them. But yeah, it gets to, so how do I choose your services? I found you. Now what? You don't want to leave them with a question mark. And so it could be whatever three you have. Um, but yeah, and make sure they're easy to find. So don't just take these three steps and bury them somewhere in, the the basement of the website. Make it very, very
Yeah.
easy to find. Yeah.
I
Um,
typically put this on the bottom of the homepage right before I put another big section that says schedule an appointment. I
right.
love to create that mental clarity. For most people, they want to work with you, but coming to your office and all that kind of feels like crossing a raging river. And all you're doing is saying, "Hey, here's the three steps to hop to get to the other side and get to a healthier version of yourself, a solution."
Yeah.
Can I share one of my favorite three-step
Yeah.
plans kind of from the world outside of private practice, but just to
Sure.
show you how brands use this all the time?
Hmm.
Uh, a few months ago, my wife was doing Weight Watchers. And what you want to Weight Watchers has also provides a three-step plan, and you'll start to see this everywhere. You'll see
Okay.
brands offering three-step plans all over the place. But Weight Watchers plan is download the app, count the points, lose the weight. Three-step plan.
Yeah.
And you see how quickly right now your brain was able to process that. Everyone listening could see, okay, that's how I'm going to lose the weight. I'm going to download the app. I'm going to count those points, and I'm going to lose the weight.
Yeah.
Um, and the reality is there are more steps to it than that, right? You have to download the app, then you got to go to the store and buy boneless, skinless chicken breast. You got to
Right.
cook that boneless, skinless breast. You got to chop it into pieces, and you got to pack it into your lunch. I'm
Hmm.
watching my wife do that.
Yes.
Um, but the other isn't dishonest. It is just a top level view of the process. And then you get
Yes.
into the details later. So a three-step plan on your website can be very powerful.
Yes. 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 Very good. Um, One that I see more than often enough, it's the menu. It's in the vein of make information easy to find. So what does everybody want to know? They want to know about you, the providers. They want to know what services you offer. They want to know where you are, so contact information. And then I always advocate if you've got good reviews, you should have them on your website. These should all be super easy to find on the menu. Every once in a while, I'll see like the services are buried or they've got really good testimonials, but they're in some strange sub-menu page. It just doesn't make any sense. It means nobody ever finds them. So, do you see this? There's just certain things anybody wants to know about a practice. Make it easy for them to find.
Yeah, definitely. And I think very often I'll see private practices using complicated language on that menu.
Mm-hmm.
Like they will say like modalities and areas of service. And it's just modalities and area of service it's gonna be confusing to people. So that just
Yes.
needs to say services.
Yes. And if
So
you want people to not call you, just make it confusing to understand you, and you'll have everything you want because they're not going to call.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
So we've put on a pretty good map here of like a pretty good checklist of things. Um, and that's kind of what we did. Are there any others that you want to that come to mind, or anything I think I should have asked you that I didn't think to ask you? We talked about misconceptions and then we kind of went into the checklist, but I'm just maybe anything about the point of view of websites, or they can, websites can really, you should take the idea of that's the anchor of anybody's online presence, not you, but listeners, please take that seriously. It's a really valuable piece of online property, um, akin to, lots of other property, even though there's no lease, you don't sign for it. You know what I mean? But it needs to be viewed on par with other real property that you own, because before we got into the list of things that we see that aren't very good, um, it's the first thing people see, lots and lots of people. And so hopefully that caught your attention. But anything you think I should have asked you, Hunter, that I didn't?
Not necessarily. I'll just throw it out there. I know a lot of people who are looking to maybe restart this process, or they're looking to kind of overhaul their website.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times it'll be what tool to use, if they are revamping. And after, about a decade in this field, I personally have become a big fan of Squarespace. So
Okay.
I think that that's a good option for people. WordPress is okay. It's great from a function standpoint, but for most people, I think Squarespace is a great place to start.
What do you like about it?
I like Squarespace because it's very low maintenance. So
Mm-hmm.
WordPress, you typically have to work with somebody, and in our days of using WordPress, websites would get hacked. You have to install multiple plugins. You basically have to hire somebody and pay them to manage it and keep it alive.
Okay.
Where Squarespace, it's all included in one, and it makes it possible for your team to make little adjustments as needed on your own without having to kind of work with an outside party. So
Okay.
that's what I appreciate about it.
There you go. Okay, good. Um, and the other question I ask in kind of wrapping up an episode is, so we've caught somebody's attention and they've been thinking about their website. Like, yeah, I don't know what, I need to do something, or now we've made them think about it. Sometimes people, when they want to change something or start something, they get stuck at the starting line of maybe of the list of things that we went through. Is there any place you would tell them to start just to kind of get off the starting line and get going?
Yeah, I would encourage them, if you were looking for one simple next step to take, would be to go update that big headline on your website.
Yeah.
Go change that to make sure that it either describes, the overall problem that you solve, or cast a vision of success for your clients. So a
Yeah.
naturopath we were working with, we just wrote a headline that said, kickstart your journey to wholeness. And it was, or sorry, kickstart your wellness journey.
Hmm.
And that was, clearer than what they had before. So I'd encourage people, go update that and shout it loud and proud. What is the problem that you help people solve, or what's the success you help them experience?
Yeah. And you know what? I love that. And if you're not sure, I think it's clear, but I'm not sure. Have somebody who's reasonably intelligent but doesn't know you read it and say, what is it you think I do based just on that? If they get it right, well, you're on to, at least it's clear. But if
Mm-hmm.
if if they waver at all, man, you got a problem, and you should fix
Yep.
it right away. Um, don't have people walk away simply because they don't understand what you do. That's that's not good. Cool. Hunter, this has been great. Like I said at the beginning, I don't get to talk marketing very often with other people, so it's it's nice to do it and hear another perspective on something as important as websites. So thank you for coming on Practice Care and sharing some of this with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to nerd out on marketing with you anytime.
So we're going to take all of Hunter's contact information that he provided and put it in the show notes for your episode so that anyone who wants to contact you can do so. And a couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you are like Hunter or us here at Market Advisory Group and you want to help private practice owners and you've got some experience on the business side that you want to share with them, or if you're a private practice owner yourself and you've got some experience on the business side of private practice that you think others would benefit from, we want you to come on Practice Care and tell the world about it. in the show notes for Hunter's episode. And every episode, there's a link, a couple of clicks. Tell us what's on your mind so that we can get scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, if you haven't done it yet, subscribe to PracticeCare, please. We do a new episode every week. The easiest way to keep up to date is to subscribe. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, Google, all the major platforms, YouTube as well. Subscribe so that when new episodes launch, you'll get them right away. Thanks very much, and until next time.